She boarded the plane like any other passenger, calm, careful, carrying medicine her son couldn't live without. But minutes after takeoff, that medicine was gone. A single cruel decision turned a routine flight into a nightmare, leaving a young black teen gasping for help while the world around him kept flying. Why did no one stop it? And how far would a father go to protect his child when the very people meant to keep them safe betrayed them? This isn't just a flight. It's a wake-up call. For Marcus and his son Elijah, flying had always been routine. Marcus, a seasoned engineer, traveled often for work, and this time he was bringing Elijah along for a long-awaited family visit. Elijah was just 16, bright, curious, and living with severe asthma that required daily medication. They arrived at the airport early, bags neatly packed, boarding passes in hand, and a sense of excitement in the air. To them, this was just another journey, another memory to collect. The boarding gate buzzed with the usual chatter, families reuniting, travelers scrolling through their phones, flight attendants greeting passengers with polished smiles. Nothing felt unusual, at least not yet. Marcus reminded Elijah to keep his medicine close, a ritual they never skipped. It was a lifeline, one they couldn't afford to misplace. But as they stepped onto the plane, neither of them could have imagined how quickly that sense of safety would unravel. A single moment of prejudice disguised as procedure was about to turn their calm flight into chaos. And in the hours ahead, Marcus would face a decision no parent should ever have to make: fight back or watch his son suffer. The Saudi flight began like any other. Seatbelts clicked, engines roared, and Elijah sat quietly by the window, clutching his inhaler case. The cabin lights dimmed as flight attendants made their rounds, offering smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. One attendant, in particular, lingered too long by their row. Her gaze wasn't warm, it was searching, dissecting, judging. "What's that?" she asked, her voice clipped, pointing to Elijah's small pouch. Marcus answered calmly, explaining it was his son's prescribed asthma medication, but her lips tightened. "That needs to be stored properly. We can't have unknown substances in the cabin." Marcus's chest tightened. "It's doctor prescribed. He needs it with him." But the attendant didn't budge. She took the pouch, her manicured fingers curling around it like a prize, and disappeared down the aisle before Marcus could stop her. Minutes passed. Elijah's breathing grew uneven, his hands trembling. Marcus pressed the call button. No response. He flagged another attendant. She promised to check on it and vanished too. The hum of the engines felt louder now, like a clock ticking down. Passengers around them began to notice the boy's shallow breaths, the sheen of sweat on his forehead. A woman offered water. Another murmured, "Is he okay?" But still, no. One brought the medicine back. Marcus stood, his voice firm but shaking with rising panic. "I need that bag back. Now!" The first attendant returned, her expression tight with authority. "Sir, sit down. We can't risk suspicious substances on this flight." Suspicious? His son's medication? The words hit like ice. Elijah wheezed. Softly, his chest rising and falling in quick, desperate bursts. Marcus's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "This is racial profiling," he said, his voice low enough to tremble but loud enough for the rows around him to hear. A few heads turned. Whispers started. The attendant stiffened. "Sir, if you continue to cause a disturbance, we will have to report you." A disturbance? His child was struggling to breathe, every second stretched. The cabin air felt thinner, heavier. Marcus felt the weight of every passenger's eyes, some concerned, others cautious, a few indifferent. But no one moved to help. He pressed the call button again, and again. Each chime echoed like a warning bell. Elijah's hand gripped his sleeve now, his lips pale. Something inside Marcus snapped, not with rage, but with clarity. If the crew wouldn't act, he would. He stepped into the aisle, voice rising over the hum of the engines. My son's life is at risk and they've taken his medicine. If he doesn't get it back now, this flight is not going anywhere. Gasps, murmurs. A ripple of tension spread like a current through the cabin. The attendant froze. Passengers turned in their seats. The atmosphere had shifted, from silent compliance to sharp collective unease. And Marcus? He was just getting started. The cabin had erupted into a low, tense hum, half outrage, half fear. Marcus stood in the aisle, his son gasping for air, and the attendant still clutching the confiscated pouch as if it were contraband. Elijah's breaths were now sharp and shallow, each one a desperate fight against the thick air that seemed to close. In around them, return it. Now! Marcus's voice cracked like a whip across the cabin, but the attendant shook her head, her tone clipped with authority. Sir, sit down before we involve the captain. Involve him, Marcus snapped, his hand already reaching for Ike, the intercom. His fingers hovered for a moment, his mind racing. Would this make him the threat? Would they twist this to blame him? Passengers began to murmur, some pulling out their phones, recording the standoff. The flight had stopped being routine. It was now a stage, and Marcus, whether he liked it or not, was at the center. Elijah wheezed again, this time clutching his chest, his eyes wide with panic. That sound, that choking, rattling breath, was the breaking point. Marcus pressed the intercom, his voice booming through the speakers. This flight isn't going anywhere until my son can breathe. Gasps rippled through the rows. The engines hummed on, but the air felt frozen. A mother in the front row shouted, "Give the boy his medicine!" Others echoed her. The attendant hesitated, the authority in her eyes flickering for the first time. In that moment, Marcus realized he had shifted the balance. Fear was no longer his alone. It was theirs too. And then, with the entire cabin watching, she slowly turned, still silent, still stiff, and walked toward the storage compartment. Was this the moment they would finally see justice? Or was it the moment the system would double down and punish him for demanding it? The medicine was finally returned, crumpled, cold, but intact. Elijah took it with trembling hands, each breath deepening as the medicine did its work. The cabin slowly exhaled with him, tension loosening but not vanishing. Marcus sat down beside his son, his heart still pounding, not from fear anymore, but from the weight of what had just unfolded. The captain never apologized. The flight attendant avoided their gaze for the rest of the journey. And when they landed, there were no formal apologies, no statements, just a quiet dispersal of passengers who had witnessed something they couldn't unsee. Marcus filed a report. Others came forward as witnesses. But he knew how these stories often ended, with silence, denial, or polite words that meant nothing. Still, he had made a choice that day. To stand when it was easier to sit, to speak when silence was the safer option. His son learned something too, that his life had value, even when the world tried to measure it as a risk. This was never just about a flight. It was about every time a black life is questioned before it's protected, every moment of hesitation that costs another breath. How many more fathers will have to shout before their children are heard? How many more flights, streets, schools, and stores will become battlegrounds for basic dignity? The plane landed. But the story? It's still in the air. And now, it's yours to carry. The stories on this channel are purely fictional and created for entertainment purposes only. We believe in equality, fairness, and a society built on respect and progress. Our goal is to share meaningful, thought-provoking stories that inspire positive change and reflection. Any resemblance to real people, events, or organizations is purely coincidental and unintended. These stories are not based on actual individuals or occurrences and carry no political or religious agenda.